Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. We've got this book here, but it's not just any book, it is a Bible, and I'm going to be decorating the front and the back cover. Had to bring in some reinforcements to open it, but once I finally got it open, it's a blank canvas, all ready to be painted and decorated, so let's get right into it. We've got this beautiful blank white space here, so of course as an artist I'm going to decorate this. To be decorating it, I'm going to be using these paints. I want to mix all of my own paint colors for this. I want to make sure they're super intentional and special for this project. And then I'm also going to be using a paint palette, obviously, and a water bucket to paint, and I also need paintbrushes. So I've actually done this before on my Bible. This one's mine. It's inspired by Matthew 8:27, and I love this cover so much. I love the pastels of it all, and I didn't decorate the back of mine, but I want to decorate the back of this one, and I've also done one for my husband before, so you might be wondering who is this one for, and this one is actually for my mom. I want to make a very special Bible for her, so that's what I'm trying to do today. So first I'm taping off the edges because I don't want to decorate the spine, and now it's time to start mixing up my colors. I was looking for a very specific pastel color, and I was willing to go to extreme lengths, even putting white paint directly on top of the Bible for some reason to get that right paint color. So once I got the paint color that I wanted, a pastel purple, I covered the whole thing with a base coat of that color. I have this vision of these purple florals all over this Bible and just making it all purple, and the back as well. So then I taped off the spine for the back, and now I'm just going in with that same purple paint color as the front for the back as well. I want it to be super cohesive and all go together. You might be wondering why so much purple, but it's actually my mom's favorite color, so I want to just decorate this whole thing in purple. Plus I think it'll be really pretty with all of the flower designs I want to put all over it. So to start on that flower design, I decided to start with a very similar but a little bit lighter color purple to the actual base. This allowed me to go ahead and make out all of the designs without actually committing to everything, so I could really make sure that it's all going to look the way that I wanted it to before I went in with some darker shades and colors and kind of made the whole thing really finalized. This just helped me to get a visual of where I wanted everything to lay out and how I wanted it all to look. I want the flowers to be kind of abstract, but not actually abstract because I want you to know that they're flowers, but I want them to be super loose and light and decorative and just really pretty. So now I'm going ahead in with an even lighter color to actually start mapping out the flowers a little bit more now that I know I like the placement of everything, and now I can go ahead and start making them look like roses and flowers and make them look like they have a little more dimension than just laying flat on the page. So I'm going ahead and just going in with little tiny strokes with paint all over to create individual looking flower petals, and just going ahead and putting it all over. At this point I really wasn't sure how many I wanted to do or how much depth I wanted it to have, but I decided to just keep on going and layering different colors. I felt like the cover was a little bit cooler of a purple than I wanted, so I decided to add in some red to make some even warmer colors in this purple here, and that made it just a little bit more warm and nice and added in some depth to the color. That way they aren't just all blue and cold. I also decided to add in a couple of variations of flowers and decided to make these ones look kind of like little lavender flowers, and then it was time to take another purple, this time even warmer of a color, and put it all over this Bible. And then I wanted to make it very light and soft to really make it all come together, and I love how it's turning out. I think it's looking so good. I was putting so much pressure on myself at first because this is a really important project to me, and at first it was putting so much pressure and strain on myself. I really wanted it to look a very specific way, but once I decided to just kind of make it look however I thought was best and just kind of go with the process one step at a time, it really started to come together, and I started to see it a little bit better once I took a step back from putting so much pressure on myself about it. So now I'm going ahead in with this dark deep purple to really add in some dimension and depth, and this is when I really saw it transform into what I wanted it to look like. And now it's time to add in little baby flower details to really bring it all together and make it come to life. I think it's the little details that you pay super important attention to that really make things transformed and make them just all come together. I decided to put little white flowers all over, all around, to really make everything come together and be unified, and also just to decorate the page and brighten it up a little bit more. We had a lot of purple, so I wanted to create some some breakups in there by adding in some white little flowers, making individual petals for each little section to really make it look a little more detailed and to again make it come to life. And you know my style, I had to add in a couple of sneaky little sparkles here and there to really make some of the flowers pop, and I think this just transformed it. I loved the look of adding some white, so I added that into some of the flowers as well, just to really brighten everything up. And then I did that on the top section as well. I kind of saw this in different parts and sections, that way my mind could handle it, and I wasn't looking at too overwhelming of a project at the same time. But then I thought it was looking so good and turning out really well. I added in a couple more sparkles, but here's what we have so far, and I'm loving it. But now we have to do the same thing that we did on the front, on the back, in a similar but different way. So here I am going in with the same steps and same process that I did on the front side to make the back look very similar. Again, I want it all to flow together and be super cohesive. I debated whether or not I should paint the back because I didn't paint them on mine or my husband's because I didn't want them to get scratched up or scuffed, but I think I can protect it well enough that it'll be worth it to paint on. So I'm going ahead and just creating this little wrap around, but keeping it to the side and the bottom this time because I know that I want to put a quote on the back here, so I want to leave plenty of room for that to shine through. And I'm going ahead in with the other individual purple colors that I used before to build up those dimensions in the roses like I did the first time. At this point, I was feeling really in my element. I was just loving what I was doing. I love painting and I love the Bible, so I love to combine those two things and these passions together, and I felt really confident after doing the front that I could do similar on the back and make it look the way that I wanted to. So I was having a lot of fun right now, just adding in all of the depth and dimension and really seeing it all come to life better than I could have imagined it, which I'm very grateful for. I was so nervous that I was gonna mess it up or it wasn't gonna turn out how I wanted it to, but it turned out way better than I could have expected it to. So I was very, very happy about that, and I love this. I love painting on Bibles. Like I said, if I could make that my full-time everything and just do that all the time, I definitely would. It was so much fun. But here I am going ahead in and adding in that white again to freshen everything up and liven it all up a bit, adding in my secret sparkles again to really make everything pop. And then it was time to start adding in little sparkles and details everywhere to really make it match the front and just to make sure that it was looking cohesive. I think the back color of the back side ended up being a little bit darker, so I wanted to use a little bit more white to brighten things up a little bit more to make the match. But here's what we have so far, and now it's time for the part that I was honestly kind of dreading, and that was doing the words for the front and the back cover. For the front, I wanted to obviously write the Holy Bible on it, and it was very scary because if you mess up on the wording and stuff, you know, you kind of messed up the whole thing. So I was trying really hard to get this right, and I had to focus really hard to make it happen. I was literally holding my breath the entire time so that I wouldn't shake while I was trying to write everything out. And for this front section here, I decided to just do a very loose little sketch out first before I finalized everything and went over it again, just to really make sure it looked how I wanted it to before I fully committed to it. But it was really kind of terrifying. The lettering is really a lot of pressure. You have to make sure you don't make any mistakes, spell anything wrong, and you have to make it look really neat and put together and keep a really steady hand with a really tiny little paintbrush. So I was really in my head about it, but I actually love how it turned out. I also had to be really intentional about keeping the right consistency with the paints. For writing, you want to make sure they're loose enough and liquid enough with enough water that you can be really fluid, but at the same time, if it's too much water, you'll create water drops all over your art, so that's not ideal either. So it's a really tricky balance to make sure you have the right paint consistency as well, but I'm really glad that I was able to do this, and I think it turned out really well, and I'm glad that I sketched out the front a little bit first. That way I could go over it with a really steady hand and make sure it all looked the way that I wanted it to. So then once that was done, I added in some deeper purples to match the wording everywhere else, and I think that touch really put it over the top. But now it's time to do the back section. So for this section, I knew that I wanted to write out a quote right in this little section here, and I was even more nervous about this, so I grabbed a little separate sheet of paper about the same size as the area that that I had to write on, and then I decided to just do a little bit of a test run just to get an idea of what size I needed to do. I tested it to see if I could actually do it with the paint, and now I'm going straight on to the Bible and trying to write this phrase out, but this time it's such small writing that I don't really get a second chance. I can't sketch it out first, I can't go over it again, I just have to get it right the first time. So I was really trying to make sure that I got it right and made sure that it all looked the way that I wanted it to before I committed to it, but I kind of just had to go for it and wing it. I had no idea if I was going to make it fit on this page or not and in the space. That is one of my worst problems. Like, I can never get the words to line up how I want them to, but I was trying really hard to get it right. And I'm writing out that man's chief end is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. So that's what I'm writing out on the back cover here. I think that's just such a clear purpose for my life and helps guide me so much. So I felt like that would be a great quote to put on the back of the Bible here. And I must say that I think this is some of my best font work to date. I think this turned out so well. I try to avoid lettering at all costs because it is so terrifying to me, but I think I did a really great job, and I think it really made the whole thing complete, and it really needed the lettering, and I don't think it would have been complete or the same without it. So I'm really glad about how it turned out. I think it turned out really well, and I also loved that I tried to use different fonts and intermix things a little bit here. I think I actually created some word art, which is very impressive for me because that is a very challenging area for me. But then I added in some little quotations to finish this off, and then it was completed here. I decided to add in a couple more little sparkle details all over the pages just to really bring it all together and lighten things up. Now it's time for a satisfying tape peel. So here we go, taking it off, and it was looking so good, so much better than I could have expected. That tape did its job well. I decided to add in some purple to the middle just a little bit by adding in a tiny little flower at the top here around the ESV symbol, and then I went ahead in with just some darker colors to make it match a little bit more. But that's all that I did for the middle spine. I decided to check if it was dry by just putting my hand all over it because that's what you should do. And now I'm bringing in some Mod Podge to really set everything together and seal it and finish it off in a fluffy brush, of course, to really make sure I fill in all of the spaces and get it all really coated well. I want to make sure this lasts for a very, very long time, so I went ahead in with several coats, letting it dry in between each time to really make sure that I sealed it all together and made sure it was done. I used pencils to not stick to the paper, and then it was done. So here's how the front turned out. I think it's so cool, and here's the back again. I love the back. I love the quote on it. I think that turned out so pretty and so cool, and I, of course, especially love the front. This is such a fun and special project to me. It combines my favorite things, my mom, the Bible, and painting, and it was so much fun to get to do all of those things and combine all of my passions into one project. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!